Josh Taylor wins an 8-round UD over Alfonso Olvera on the undercard of the Frampton Santa Cruz rematch. Josh Taylor is trained by Shane McGuigan. He's unbeaten. He is currently, I think is he 8-0 or 7-0? He's from Scotland in the UK. And he is one of the most highly touted prospects in British boxing at the moment. There is a rivalry building up between himself and Ohara Davies. And, Davies is a divisive character, I think it's fair to say. A lot of people dislike him. Probably more people in British boxing, in terms of the fans, dislike him than like him. But whatever the case may be, Ohara Davies is causing controversy and talking about fighting a lot of other British fighters. And one of them is Josh Taylor. Now, I saw a recent interview with Shane McGuigan where he was saying that he thinks Josh Taylor would ruin or destroy, or whatever words he chose, Ohara Davies. And a lot of people seem to be going along with that and saying, yeah, Ohara Davies will get destroyed by Josh Taylor. I'm not so sure. Ohara Davies has had more fights. Josh Taylor's coming off this win over Dave Ryan, well, before he fought Alfonso Olvera. So people were very high on Taylor coming off the Dave Ryan win. But against Olvera, he didn't look as convincing. It has to be said, though, it was his first fight in the United States. He may have been dealing with jet lag. He may have, been dealing with the whole occasion because it was a big deal, a big show out there in Las Vegas. That might have got to him a little bit. He might not be used to that environment yet. And that could have played into his, what some would say, lackluster performance against Olvera. People expected more of him. Olvera hasn't had that many fights, but so far, I think he's had like 11 fights, 10, 11 fights. So far, he's never been stopped, as far as I'm aware. So when you're going in there with a guy who hasn't been stopped before, you shouldn't automatically expect a stoppage. Yeah, that's one thing people should understand. So there are certain circumstances here. And remember, Josh Taylor is inexperienced so far as a professional. So there are certain situations and circumstances surrounding his fight with Olvera that we have to take into account before we just say, oh, Taylor's rubbish and this was a terrible performance. When I look at him and Ohara Davies as a rivalry, Josh Taylor, as far as I know, is taller than Davies. He's about 5'10". Davies is definitely shorter than 5'10". Right, I can tell you that. Definitely shorter than 5'10". But he does have very long arms. So I'm not sure who would have the reach advantage. I suspect it would still be Davies because his arms are ridiculously long. But I can't be sure of that. Josh Taylor looks to have the more polished style. He looks to have better balance, so on and so forth. At first glance, if you were to glance at both of these fighters, a couple of their fights briefly, and you hadn't seen them before, I can understand why people would say, okay, well, Taylor looks better than Ohara. Because of the fact that Taylor has a bit more polish on his style. He's a little less clumsy. He's not really clumsy at all, or too clumsy at all, Josh Taylor. Whereas Ohara can look a bit clumsy at times. But I think personally Ohara, from what I've seen of him, and I've seen quite a few of Ohara Davies' fights, he's very physically strong. I think that's something that's not really talked about that much. He hits hard, but his physical strength is very good. He's very physically strong. He's got a very solid jab. He hits hard, and he's got very long arms. And he's able to impose those assets onto his opponents very, very well, Ohara Davies. And as I say, as much as Josh Taylor might be a bit more refined in terms of his technique and a bit more tidy, at this point in time, I think Ohara would have a very good chance of imposing his particular skill set, his particular assets onto Josh Taylor successfully. That physical strength that he has, that very powerful jab, the punching power, so on and so forth. And he's very confident. At this point, I would be leaning towards Ohara winning that fight. But, Josh Taylor's had less fights than Ohara. He's got plenty of experience to gain in the pro game. So maybe I'll change my mind on who would win the fight down the line. But if it was to happen right now, I'd definitely be siding with Ohara to win it. Yeah. I'm not saying Taylor don't have a chance at all. It's winnable for him too. But I'd be picking Ohara, I think. He just looks a bit more developed in terms of knowing what to do in the boxing ring. Josh Taylor commented on O'Hara's last fight against, was it Scarpa? I believe the guy's name was. And Josh Taylor said that O'Hara's performance was terrible. And that was against Scarpa. Scarpa is a higher level fighter than the guy that Josh Taylor just fought in Olvera. So if he's saying O'Hara's performance, where he won every round against Scarpa was terrible, then what was his performance like against a much lower level opponent in Olvera? Will Shane McGuigan feel a little different now about how Josh Taylor might do against Ohara Davies? I don't know, but that's just my assessment of it at the moment. I think that Josh Taylor, there's potential there. He's got fast hands. That's another thing I forgot to mention to me. He's got faster hands than Ohara Davies. So plenty of potential, but very, very young in his professional career. And he's going to need a lot of work and a lot of time. Whereas Ohara Davies is still a bit rough around the edges, but mentally he seems very confident and he knows what to do in the ring. He's quite clever, Ohara, in the ring. From what I've seen of him so far, he's quite smart. Even though you don't see necessarily the most polished technique, he knows from a strategic point of view what he needs to do in certain situations. So, yeah, those are just my feelings on Josh Taylor's victory over Alfonso Olvera and his rivalry with Ohara Davies. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. If you disagree, that's fine. As long as we're all respectful here, we can agree to disagree. All right, let me know. It's Hatman, I'm out.